broadcast from my office in Bexley. Hope you can see the lovely backdrop. I've been told that the little bottle of vodka you can see on the carpet behind me was the world's best vodka 2010. Looking forward to having a go at that at some point. But within TA, other things are occupying our minds right now. And there's been some great slogans thrown around, from the Great Resignation to hiring Tsunami, through lots of others. And we've decided that it would be a great time that to talk about labour market insight, labour market data, knowledge, and how that can help when you have things like a Great Resignation or a hiring tsunami. And the format that we thought we'd run with is to showcase 3 organisations that have used Labour Market Insight or are about to start using Labour Market Insight. So take you through a story that is an established user, a user that's getting up to really fast-paced use of labour market data, and a new user who's looking to impact their business with Horsefly. So you're going to get a range of views from 3 great speakers. We're having to apologise. The marketing did say that speaker 2 would be Neil Denton from Capgemini. Neil's unavoidably had to relinquish the spot through to internal work pressure, and we're delighted that Dave Vinton from Orsted, the world's largest, I think, green energy firm, or fastest growing, he will tell us more about it, is joining us, and his story is you must not miss. But we're going to kick off with an experienced user, and this will be the format. I'll invite our speakers to talk for 15-20 minutes, and then we'll take questions. Now, to run this in this environment and to run it in a way in which everybody can contribute and we can keep to time, I'd ask you if you could write your question whilst the speaker is presenting their piece in the chat. That's you can see that in the little speech bubble on Teams. If you write that down, I will ask the question on your behalf. So that's the first ask. If you have something that you think you'd like to know a little bit more about, ask the question. If it's a tough answer, then I'm sure we'll follow up afterwards. But nevertheless, we are going to be following up with a little survey at the end, and we'll give you more information on that as we get there. But I would be amiss of me to dive into this without inviting the Horsefly team to introduce themselves and to welcome everybody. So, Steve, over to you.
I'll keep it very brief, Adrian, as directed. Thanks to the 3 speakers today. Thanks for giving up your time and preparing the talks for us. It's very much appreciated. And thanks ever so much to everyone that's coming along to learn some more about talent analytics, this forward-facing set of data that we now provide, that's basically helping businesses make stronger, quicker, more economically viable decisions around resource planning, business planning, and obviously talent acquisition. I'll hand back to Adrian. I really hope these speaker stories are engaging for you. And if there's any further requests or comments off the back of today, don't hesitate to reach out to Horsefly, to myself, or to any of the team for questions and answers. But I'll hand back to Adrian so we can get up and running with our first speaker.
Thanks, Steve. And at the end, we'll remind you of how to get in touch with Horsefly if anything that's been said today has whetted your appetite. But it's also very easy to Google Horsefly and get straight into the team and to request a meeting as well. But we need to move on, and I'm delighted to welcome Rod Kingdom from the Department for Transport. Rod's an experienced recruiter, both in the private and recently, last 3 years or so, I think, Rod, in the public sector, leading the recruitment teams within the Department for Transport. Now, Rod's going to tell us how the DFT has moved away from manual market analysis, and I guess a lot of us we're quite used to doing that. Into forward-facing labour market insights provided by Horsefly, and tell us how that's helping them hit their hiring targets. Rod's been a user for a little while, and I'm going to be really interested to hear how the DFT has taken to Horsefly. Over to you, Rod.
Great, thanks, Adrian. I think that was one of the nicest introductions I've ever had, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just wanted to go through today really about the journey and the story that we've had with Horsefly. So I just wanted to start on why we decided to partner with Horsefly, and to be honest, it definitely is a partnership. Today alone, we've done some refresher training with our team to make sure that all the new features coming out, which I'm sure other people will talk about, our team are up to date training. So it really, really is a partnership. So us as a team in digital, we were set up to run as an in-house agency. And first of all, we recruited for all the agencies across the DFT family. And we had quite unusual numbers. So what we discovered was every campaign that we ran was completely different for each agency. And I'll be honest, our first year, our success rate was only about 34 to 38% for DFTC. So what we decided to do was to start analyzing the market to try and get ahead of the game. So what we used to do was, with all of the other sites that we used to do a lot of manual reports. So members of the team would have to scour every single website possible. So we'd use LinkedIn Salary. We'd also then use our advertising platforms to see how many people were looking for jobs, what the numbers were like within the area. But what we noticed was that was people who were currently looking for jobs, and it didn't give a true insight into the areas. So we went and spoke to loads of different people, and then I spoke to Steve within Horsefly, and I gave Steve what we were trying to do. Steve came back then with a presentation to myself and the business to say how we could partner with Horsefly. And what Horsefly to us demonstrated was it was a one-stop shop. So whereas before we'd have to go onto every single website, get a little bit of data, put it into our own graphs, this used to take between 30 minutes and an hour, depending on the level of job, that within 30 seconds of clicking search on Horsefly, it was actually pulling back a detailed report for us, and it done everything. So we originally started using Horsefly just in digital. So when we trialed it, so we trialed for a few months to see if it was worth us doing. So we started by just using a simple Horsefly report when we knew a campaign was unsuccessful. And what the reason for that was, we were then comparing our campaigns data versus what the Horsefly data was producing. Because when we would go into a recruitment discussion with our hiring managers and we were saying, look, this campaign is going to be hard to fill, we always used to get asked, why? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? So this is where we changed our use of Horsefly straight away. And we start looking at Horsefly as more strategic partner now, rather than a reactive MI and proof. So what we do, we pull a report when we get to know what campaigns are coming. We then go through the data. So we'll look, a prime example, Swansea is really hard for us to recruit at the moment. So what we'll do is we then use the data to say, look, we've got this campaign, there's only 10 within the area, 6 already work for us, and they work for our competitors, and here's where they are. But if we expand the search function, if we expand it to say South Wales on our adverts instead of Swansea specific, we will then start targeting the Cardiff, the Newport. And what we do is to demonstrate that, we'd be like, look, there's an extra 100 people in Cardiff, an extra 50 people in Newport. So let's start pushing the field. So just that data kind of just showed our hiring managers, one, we know what we're talking about. So when we were suggesting other changes to make to the advert, to the recruitment approach, we kind of had the basic data from Horsefly behind us. So what they then started to do is trust us a lot more. And we've seen some fantastic results since. So we started using that. We then signed into Horsefly for 1 year, and we partnered with one of our agencies, DVSA, which I will talk through in a few minutes of how they use it, because they use it as a more workforce planning rather than just a recruitment tool like my teams use it. So we've done that with Horsefly. It's been fantastic. But now what we're doing as well with Horsefly, we'll start looking at future work. So a prime example, we're struggling with cloud throughout the whole of the UK, recruiting within digital, because it's obviously a newer technology. There's not the long-standing people with experience. So what we started to do is look at areas of the UK, universities, all of that, to actually start partnering up. So we're now even going down the route of using Horsefly as a future tool for us to start setting future strategies, because the data is showing, compared to normal technologies, cloud isn't there in the UK, or it's a very low percentage. So we need to grow our own. But again, when you just say that to a hiring manager, there's no proof. So Horsefly to me and the team is proof, which has been fantastic. Then our DVSA, they use it as more of a workforce planning. So when they know of a role coming up, obviously we're part of the civil service, so we're quite restricted in our salary bandings. So there are exceptions where we can use allowances. We use now the new DDAP pay framework, but for us to put an allowance on a campaign, we actually have to have justification, so market insight, and this is what Horsefly does for us. So when we pull a campaign, it will show exactly what the average is of the area, and it shows then that actually we're below, we're above, or we need to add a £5,000 allowance to just bring us in to be competitive. So we use it for that side. We then use it again as a more strategic location roles. So now, obviously, with COVID, it's given us a lot more freedom into where we can recruit in the UK because people working from home. But a lot of our agencies have multiple sites. So whereas before we used to say all the jobs had to be based in Nottingham, we will now do this approach and be like, well, actually, why not target Leeds, because there's more people within that skill frame within Leeds. So now we'll put our adverts to external adverts on like Total Jobs, CV Library and LinkedIn to be based at Leeds, but actually they can be based at any area. So we're actually now targeting candidates through using Horsefly, which is fantastic. And then we actually using it then to back up our MI data. So our team in-house is fantastic, and we have amazing diversity data from all of our campaigns. But to show if it's right, we actually compare it to Horsefly. So now what we'll do is at the end of a campaign, we'll have all the diversity data that we've obviously gathered from our campaigns, but we will actually then compare it to Horsefly. So we'll be like, well, actually, yes, that number of male applications was expected because look, Horsefly is telling us this is what the data is within the market. We're actually about right. So we'll use it again to back up what we've done, whether it was successful or unsuccessful. And then the biggest way my team use it is actually through our active headhunting. So when obviously our titles come through, we have to stick to the job titles that we're given. However, we have a bit of flexibility on our external site. So one of the latest additions in Horsefly in the last 6 months, which is one of my favorite, you can actually see a candidate's journey. So we can click on the current job title, but then we can see what job titles the candidates have come from. And this makes it a lot easier for us to be headhunting, because we're not going to get a senior software engineer to become a senior software engineer with us, because there's not progression, there's not new salaries. So what we do is we target the ones which the job titles that these people have come from, which again is a fantastic new tool for us to pipeline through the market. And then really finally then from us is obviously recently we signed into a multiple year deal with Horsefly, because again, one, Steve is a great salesman and he's showing us all these new products and stuff that are coming. But for us, we're only just scratching the surface of using Horsefly. We're not using it as much as we can be or as much as we want to be. So one of the biggest things that we're going to be doing is every single campaign across the DFT family will have access to the system. Whereas at the moment, it's only my team who have access, and we're only about 10% of the overall recruitment for DFT. So what we've done is today we've had more people within our team trained up, and we're actually having a central inbox, and then the rest of our team then will be able to just request a report. So actually, it's going to give us a far better strategic approach to all of our recruitment, and not just a reactive style recruitment to what we currently have. And again, we're going to build up a lot of appointments, a lot of pipelines, academies, apprenticeships by working with universities and colleges, which again is a fantastic feature that Horsefly has given us. We would never have heard of some of these universities because we would have gone to the original ones which are just listed in the Times, but actually some of the courses being offered are perfect for some of our unusual roles. So for us, this tool has just opened up a whole other market for us. I believe that's it of my presentation, Adrian.
Rod, absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And I know that you're saying some quite sensitive things and speaking to slides that are quite general. However, we have had some very specific questions for you.
Okay.
So let me take them. So the first question is relating to diversity data. And how do you relay the internal diversity data to that from Horsefly? I'm wondering if that should be relate. How do you relate the internal diversity data to that from Horsefly? Is that a straight comparison, or would you further mine it location versus function?
So we go down to quite granular detail. So we will go down to location. We will go down to the type of role as well. So one example we're looking at now is very technical based roles within digital. So we'll look at architecture, and then we're going to see what our stats are that we've produced over the last 12 months. But then we're going to do an up-to-date market report then from Horsefly to see actually if what we're achieving is anywhere near what it should be within the UK. If not, why not? Let's look at our adverts, let's look at our approach, and then we'll tailor our approach then to make sure that it's the best approach that we can possibly do for the role.
Excellent. I've got a question which I think is more for me than you, Rod, but Sarah Knox asks, are all the case studies UK based? We are operating in 41 countries and interested to know if anyone has experience of using the data in multiple countries. Sarah, can you hold the line? Dave Vinton, our next speaker, is the ideal person to listen to for that. He will be talking about how his organisation is using it internationally. So if we don't get your answer, please come back and ask it again. Skip on to Maiko, who says, did I understand correctly? Are you able to track an individual job journey, or is it a statistical analysis? Rod?
So I don't think I can actually answer that one. For us, when we click on a Horsefly report and you click on software developer, it shows you the journey that it has been on the person. So Steve, Adrian, I'm not sure if you can give more details on that.
Yeah, it might be one for, I know Will's going to do a little talk later and Will might be able to go into some detail, but basically we show one step forward and one step back on a career path analysis. So you're able to see where the senior software developers were previously in their job history. So you can look at the left-hand side. You can also look at the right-hand side of where they're going to go to next. And that data is drawn from over 500 million anonymized skill profiles globally. So that's how we allow you to see the candidate sort of flight path.
Excellent, Rod. There's a question about how you managed to buy Horsefly. Question from Joe: were you able to directly appoint Horsefly, or did you have to go to tender?
So we went through the G-Cloud framework within the government. So we've used that. And yes, we did have to do a mini tender as such. So we had to see and compare what other systems are on the G-Cloud framework that could do similar. And we just then obviously went into a lot of detail of what we actually needed, and Horsefly came out as the partner suitable for us.
Excellent. If you've got any more questions about engaging with Horsefly, then take a note of the contact details, which Steve will share later, and he's obviously provided Horsefly to many organisations, quite a few UK public sector, and he can advise on the purchase routes as necessary. Rod, I'm going to say thank you. There's no more questions for you, but that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks. Next, I'm going to ask Dave Vinton from Orsted. Orsted is a green energy firm, fastest growing, biggest. He will explain more about Orsted, I am sure. But Dave's a well-known figure in the TA field. He's a member of the RL 100, colleague of mine there. And he's been pushing labour market insights into Orsted's global strategy. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about the success of that. But he can do it in multiple languages, fluent in Italian and Dutch, but he's going to be speaking to us in English, I hope. One of the best stories I've heard is that the board at Orsted are crediting Dave and Horsefly for amazing savings against in their talent strategy. And hopefully Dave will give us a little bit of an insight into how Orsted, being a global firm, is using the insights that Horsefly provides. Dave, over to you.
Great, thanks, Adrian. And do you have my slides, or shall I drive myself? I'm happy to.
You can drive yourself. If there's a tech issue, I'll step in with them. But why don't you drive yourself?
I'll drive myself. So give me a moment to share my window, and then I'm right with you. So wanted to talk a bit about how we use Horsefly, and then what it's enabling for us as a business, which is where I think the really interesting work is. So if I share up, and hopefully you can see, Adrian, give me a nod if you can see my slides.
Yes.
Brilliant, lovely. So I want to talk about how we're building a workforce planning capability in Orsted, almost from a standing start, and how we're using that to plan for market entry in Poland and the Baltics. I will talk about where that's gone since I last put this presentation together, and how we're now starting to use this towards the back end of the presentation as well in all of our global markets. So if I give you the elevator pitch for Orsted as a company, which you may not have heard of, Orsted is one of the leaders in renewable energy. We used to be an oil and gas company. Since then, we have stripped our carbon emissions by 96%. So this is why we've also been awarded the most sustainable company in the world. We're the global leader in offshore wind. And we are on track by 2025 to be completely carbon neutral, to emit no carbon whatsoever. So this is where we're going as a company, but our ambitions are much wider than that. So from a European base, we are aiming to create a world that runs entirely on green energy, to take the technology and the capabilities worldwide. And so we're growing in lots of new regions as part of our goal to be the world's first green energy super major, so equivalent size to an oil and gas super major. That's our aim, that's our ambition, that's where we're going. And that throws up some challenges. We're now growing in markets that are completely new. So I'll talk specific about Poland, because this was our entry point for Horsefly. So Orsted's been awarded contracts for 2 major wind farms in the Baltic Sea off Poland that will power 4 million homes with green electricity. They're the first ever offshore wind projects in Poland. So this market does not exist. And to give you an idea about the scale of this, this is 2.5 gigawatts. There's a commitment from a Polish government to have a minimum of 11 gigawatts by 2040. We think there is a capacity to have 4 times that offshore wind production in Poland. We think it's a huge market. And so what I want to say is this is not a standalone project. This is for us an entry point into a strategically important market for us. And that's where we're coming in. This, however, throws up some significant challenges for us. The first problem is this, that there is no existing offshore wind market in Poland. We can't go and hire from our competitors because we don't currently have any. So that makes it interesting from a workforce planning perspective. Secondly, what we don't have is we don't have an understanding of the market. What are the skill sets and competencies in Poland that can be used to develop that business? Nobody knows because we haven't been in Poland before. Thirdly, we need to take talent strategy as a shared approach by the project and HR and procurement. It's currently done by line managers. And then finally, this is where it really begins to bite for me. When we win a contract to build a wind farm, we have local content commitments that require us not only to staff parts for the wind farm locally, but to staff locally wherever possible. But we delegate that decision out, and we don't have a clear view of actually how are we going to do that, how are we going to make that happen, how's that going to come true. So here's what we've come up with. This is our workforce planning approach in Orsted. You can see I've popped restricted on the top because it's semi-confidential. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the business strategy and our project execution plans and then add on the layer that was missing, which is talent analytics. Talent analytics enables us to make the strategic decisions about how are we going to do this, how are we going to actualize this. When I discussed this previously in RL 100, I shared the numbers, but we're looking to add another 500 people in Poland in the next 3 years. It's a fairly significant growth for us of very, very technically hard to find skill sets. And so as we look at that talent supply chain, we need to make the build, buy, borrow, and redeploy decision for Orsted, and then look at what that means in terms of our HR activity, in terms of employer branding, management of our internal resources, talent acquisition activity, internal mobility, cross-training, early careers. And then what we want to land out is defined go-to-market plan. We've got a really clear staffing plan that stretches across multiple years, talking through how we're going to build and how we're going to grow in a new geography for us. I'm always really keen when I speak to the business to say that this isn't fluffy. This isn't a sort of HR language. There'll be measurable outcomes and deliverables for this in terms of reducing our time to hire, reducing our cost per hire, significantly impacting our over-reliance currently on expatriates and having more local staffing. And we want to be able to manage quality of hire and the performance against financial forecasts. And so this is important for us. This has bottom line implications. We want to be able to say to people, look, what we're doing here actually saves the business money. It has a meaningful and a tangible impact upon this. And actually the cost differential, if we hired someone in Denmark where we're headquartered versus Poland, our analysis powered by Horsefly says that that person in Poland is 54% cheaper. So actually every hire we make is a significant cost saving. And as you start to scale that up, that number becomes big, and it becomes big quickly. Here's what we're doing, and here's what we've done. This is the pilot. I'll talk through the actual implementation. The first thing is that HR are now in embedded parts of the project team. We've got something to bring to the table. I sit in the project team for Poland. I work alongside them and I help them realize and actualize that staffing plan. I help take that project plan and turn it into a reality. Secondly, what we're doing is rapid talent market analysis. Rod touched on this. I can get reports from Horsefly in 30 seconds to say, where does that skill set sit? What's the relative experience level? What's the compensation level? Where should I put that skill set in Poland? I can do that quickly. I can provide rapid talent market analysis. And finally, we're using this to look at internal talent pipelining, saying, where are the gaps? Let's build that in and let's start to build a total go-to-market plan for this. And this is where my slides failed previously, so let's hope they work. The first thing that we're doing is we take in our demand. We take in the demand for what the staffing is. And I'm always keen to say to people that the forward view of workforce needs does not need to be exact. As long as I have an idea of the types of skills you need to hire, I can help you. Secondly, digital tools, and the digital tool here is Horsefly, where I can assess really quickly what's the local talent market availability, what are available and adjacent skill sets, where can I find the people who've got skills, where can I look at cross-training. And then I've got benchmarks external data. And really where this is so helpful for us is I come to the table of information that business does not have. I'm able to say the relative skill pool here is X and equates to the skill pools that we know, which are Y. And here's what the cost differential is. Here's the experience level. Here's where they work. Here's where they went to university. Here's a career path. I can actually go in with data. We're not working on assumptions. We're working on data. The next thing is we have a dialogue around the staffing options. We talk about what are the pros and cons of different staffing models. Again, data-driven decisions. So rather than them telling me, I don't think we can find anyone in Warsaw or Gdansk, we can have an informed decision based around data. The next thing that we then do is we take that and then we go into HR strategy planning and we talk about what are the different mechanisms we can use. Do we use experienced hire? Should we use external consultants? Do we set up early careers programs? Do we do cross-training, expatriation, extended business trips? All of these things, as we all know, work in HR have different ramp-up times. By getting ahead of it with the data, we can actually go and say, we know what it's going to look like to staff this. We know what that access to talent is, and then we can figure out a plan for what we're going to do. Then we come up with our go-to-market plan. We can build it into our demand planning tool inside Orsted with a resource type and how we're going to do it. And then we can start to share with the staffing budget holders and the HR departments the next actions. So I can go to our employer branding team and say, these are the skills we're going to need to hire. Here's where they're based in Poland. Here's who they work for. Can you put together an employer branding campaign for me to attract these different people? And another thing that Horsefly does, which is really cool, is it'll give me the adverts that people are running for those job titles currently in Poland. So I can click in and say, look, what are our competitors advertising for the same skill set? And begin to use that. That's hugely useful for employer branding. Then we execute. And then the last thing we do is we calibrate, refine, and improve. So that's how we're using it. And I think this is my last slide on the deck. So I want to talk about where we've gone to next with this. So we put this in place for Poland. And when we did this for Poland, we were able to really quickly provide a level and depth of insight that the business had never seen before. I've said previously, it was almost like we discovered fire in the HR department, that suddenly we came in with hard data to back up our assertions. We're able to evidence everything. We're able to show what this looks like in practice and be able to provide something for the business that they had never seen before. They were able to see that actually HR came armed to the teeth with data. I work in an engineering business. You need to have data to have an opinion. We can back up our opinions with hard data. That is really important. What we're now doing is we're using Horsefly fairly extensively. I'm using it to look at our ramp up in the US, where we have 7 projects that are the size of the Poland project. So it's a big market for us. Same scenario, no offshore wind currently. We're building off the first projects, but we've got lots and lots of work to do. And we're starting to ask some quite strategic questions like, where do we base offices? Where do we grow capabilities? What's the difference between placing here and there? What states are the most useful ones to ramp up on? Horsefly makes that super simple for us. And the final thing we're doing, which is under wraps and quite confidential, but is really cool, is we're looking at our 2030 strategy and saying, what market should we go into from a talent perspective? What bids should we try and win? Where does that talent sit? Where might we establish new offices that sit globally to support our global growth plans? Where could those offices be? And again, we're able to go in with data. I was in a discussion 2 days ago with our board where we were able to show the cost differential and the talent availability for different technical skill sets across 30 different countries. And they were sort of amazed at this. We always talk in the TA world, and Adrian and I have heard it maybe 50 or 100 times. How does HR get a seat at the table? My guide would be is come with data. I'm now being invited to the table because I've got something to show, something to evidence, something to give people. I'm able to say, look, I can provide this. I'm currently seconded into our corporate strategy team, looking at the company's growth towards 2030 as we look to significantly grow, and from a headcount perspective, double in size. And they're saying, look, rather than us telling you where it's going to be, you tell us. And that's a hugely powerful place to be. We're looking at the moment about where we locate 250 different roles. I did a cost saving there. We think we've identified a location where the cost saving for us is going to be in the region of $300 million for those 250 roles. Because they're technical skill sets, we're looking at another location, we're looking at putting them elsewhere. We are able very quickly to talk about some really significant cost mitigation exercises. But it's not only cost, we can use it to start to really build a plan for the business about how do we staff. Where we were as an organization is we had this approach of let's just stick out a job offer and see. That's how we learned about new markets. And then maybe let's talk to some local partners and try and get a bit of an understanding. With this, we can go in first. And where we're hoping to take it in the next 6 to 12 months is we bid for wind farm projects right around the world. We're invited by governments to tender. We will try to bake in talent market analysis to this So if we're bidding for a project in, let's say, China, we can say, what does that labour market look like? What does the skill set look like? What are the projects that make most sense for us to bid for in terms of talent availability? And using that as a strategic lens in terms of where we actually choose to base wind farms. And each of those is $1 billion plus commitment. So we can quickly begin to see that actually Horsefly is enabling much more of a conversation and much more of a technology enabled and data driven approach to strategic growth and workforce planning. And I think that's everything, Adrian.
Dave, that was an amazing run through. Very, very exciting. And your own personal journey must be great. I was going to ask you about the so-called mythical seat on the board, but so many of us have been knocking on the door. It seems that they've opened the door. They're dragging you through it and sitting you down. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm being chased by our CEO and our COO and our head of region for the US for this kind of insight and data. Currently, they are giving us, that access, and they want to know. And we're actually now coming with something that is of huge value to them. So that's why they are inviting me into the room rather than me begging to be let in, because suddenly I'm not there simply as an order taker. I'm there to provide them strategic advice.
That is so exciting. Now, I do have a couple of questions. Will asks, once you've put that information into the organisation, have they got a workforce plan that you're then hiring from at the moment?
Yeah, it depends on the area of the business. Would be the honest take, Steve. We've got if we're building a wind farm, we've got a project plan, and that's quite technically detailed actually, and includes what roles we need over a number of years. If you then go to our IT function, they don't have that and they don't need that. But what we can do is we can start to talk about skill sets. And so we say, what skills will we need as we go towards 2030? And there are lots of opinions on that. So we can actually start to begin to look at how we strategically acquire and develop those skills. So when it's not role by role, doesn't matter. If I'm talking about skills, I can start to say, what does the market look like for that skill? What does the market look like for that capability? How do we access it and where?
Great. And Chris asked, clearly you're using Horsefly for your labour market insight, but Chris asks, what demand planning tool are you using and how far forward are you confidently able to look?
The demand planning tool is internal. We built it ourselves. So, I would say that it's not off the shelf. However, it depends again on the sector. So if I'm looking at our engineering projects, I can go about 6 or 7 years out. If I'm looking at our support functions, I can probably go 1 or 2 years out maximum. But that's still helpful for me. I would say outside of engineering, we use everyone's favorite planning tool, Excel. So that's accessible to everyone. Where we start to look at financial forecasts and headcount forecasts and those kinds of things, we can begin to have that conversation and then begin to support that conversation with data. So when I see a department that's looking to add 50 to 100 headcount, for me, there's a conversation to be had there. There's the opportunity to bring data to bear on it.
Dave, I've got a great question about how you're working with the Horsefly customer success team. How has the implementation and their support worked for your organisation?
They've been super helpful for us. I would put myself at the power user end of sort of data, but we've got other people now beginning to access this. So it's helpful, for example, for our compensation team looking at new markets. Our head of HR in Poland is very, very interested as well. And she's using the Horsefly platform. And they are super helpful in terms of helping us to understand, actually, for people who aren't data heads, how do I get the most out of this platform? Is the most important thing. And they're also on hand to say, look, this is the question I'm beginning to ask. How could I maybe use data to analyze that? So as well as just like demoing the platform and helping us through onboarding new users, they're also helping us to understand maybe how can I use that? And I'm now pushing Steve on what are the new regions we need to be looking at. There's also a dialogue there of saying, look, here's where we're going as an organization, and here's the coming needs that we have. So that's really good for us. I would say with that customer success team, it's not just help me use Horsefly. It's a dialogue around, look, here's where we're going. how can you help and support us on that journey? And I see that as a strategic partnership as Orsted grows and evolves.
Okay, there's a little insight there into Horsefly's team, not just the guys who sell the product and are often the ones engaging with the business, but also there's a whole raft of people who then support you on your journey. Is that what I'm understanding? Yeah,
and we're in regular dialogue, so that's really helpful for us, that we've got that backup and support. They haven't just sold us some software and then disappeared. They are working with us through that journey. And we see them, as Rod said, as a partner, not as a provider.
Okay, Peter, I hope that answered your question as well. Thank you. Is there any other questions? I mean, I'm just intrigued by how you started having those conversations, Dave, in your organisation. You've got this sort of some labour market insight. How did you get it in front of the senior team to start with?
I think always my HR sort of career navigation tip is look at the problem area. Where is the problem that we are seeing in an organization? Where are we starting to find some real challenges? Who's struggling? And then how can I help that person? And actually that's been my sort of career navigation tip. So the Poland one was our entry point. Now I thought there's a need for strategic workforce planning right across the whole organization. In Poland, we were struggling, and I was able to come with a solution that actually brought real intelligence to that conversation. And surprise, surprise, I said this to Steve when we were in the sales conversation. I said, look, Steve, the minute I do this, they're going to want me for everything. And that's what's come to pass. So that's my thing, is look where the problem is. Where are the problems where our lack of insight and lack of intelligence is really hurting us? That is where you can come with some insight. As you start to do that and really elevate the level of conversation, don't be surprised when people go, hey, we could use this in like 10 different ways. That's where we're at now.
Excellent. I mean, amazing insight into using insight, if I can leave it at that. Thanks very much, Dave, and best wishes with that growth and those plans for making the world a little bit greener. Over now to Richard Burgess-Kelly. Richard is with SSCL. Now, SSCL is a joint venture between Sopra Steria and the Cabinet Office. Delivers a huge, wide range of business support services, including recruitment, HR, payroll, IT, contact centres, finance and accounting. It's a huge list. Now, they also deliver business transformation programs into the UK public sector, the police and the defence sector. And I was amazed to find out that they have a target to release £1 billion worth of savings. And this is the beginning of their Horsefly journey. Really excited to hear from Richard. Over to you.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Let me just share my slides. If you could let me know that you can see my screen.
That's looking fantastic, Richard.
Cool, thank you. So welcome everybody. Hi, my name's Richard Burgess-Kelly. I'm the head of growth strategy for the recruitment and resourcing division of SSCL. As Adrian said, SSCL's joint venture that was created by the Cabinet Office, who own 25% of us, and Sopra Steria 75% of us in 2013. SSCL was created as an amalgamation of a number of key central government departments, joining together to create a large back office service function, and we continue to grow today to provide those broad range of services that Adrian did mention. The vision, as Adrian has said, is to save the public sector purse string and enhance those services and improve the quality of life and protect people, the environment, and deliver better outcomes for UK citizens and businesses. We sort of built a brand within a brand actually recently. So the recruitment and resourcing vision, we're trying to get our customers to select SSCL Resourcing as the government sector recruitment market leader, and engage us to engineer rigorous future-focused solutions that are going to measurably help with their digital and workforce planning transformation. Just to give you a bit of an overview of us year to date, where we are. So this is sort of the size, scale and complexity of the recruitment services that we support across government and police and defence clients. we get at the moment 639,000 applications for, I think it's 4,570 odd job roles. We administer between us and the Cabinet Office is a psychometric assessment team. 201,000 selection interventions, and as a result of that, as the end of September, we've successfully delivered 35,781 candidates into new roles. So I just thought I'd try and give you a bit of size and scale of the resourcing function within SSCL. So when I joined as a permanent employee back in March 2020, after working with SSCL and Sopra Steria Group as a contractor in other departments, I evaluated what our go-to-market strategy was. And if I'm honest, SSCL had a tendency of only tendering for the full suite of services. And when I say everything, I mean they wanted to get hold of their hands on everything. So we mapped out the services that we provided, added some new innovative products and solutions, and made them modular. Right. And what I mean by modular is a lot of these services and products that we now deliver are quite platform agnostic. Organisations in the government sector, and it is government sector only, can buy this as a modular solution to complement their current in-house recruitment function, rather than taking on the full BPO and RPO service offering. In-house recruitment teams can ask us to come in at any stage of the recruitment process to support with specific recruitment requirements within their organisation. I would say SSCL is quite known for its volume complex recruitment solutions, supporting digital end-to-end, all the way from attraction through to assessment, selection and onboarding, and then working with those candidates through that HR and payroll management. We provide a lot of the frontline services, so we support the Metropolitan Police. We also support people like HMPPS and the MOJ with prison officer recruitment, but we also deliver project RPO and niche recruitment services and specialist headhunting services to complement it. As you'll see right at the front end of this SSCL resourcing capability, we've actually added a complementary module of talent intelligence and insights. And one of those products that we are going to be using, because we're still an early adopter of this technology, is Horsefly. The resourcing evolution and what's changed for us. So the last 12 months have accelerated quite considerably some of the services and products that we utilise and use. There's also been a number of impacts from policies changes and recruitment market impacts. We only need to go back sort of 12 months ago where we were all in a very different market, right, than the one we're in today. 12 months ago, we were in quite uncertain times with the COVID-19 pandemic. Not many organisations were hiring. There was lots of candidates per job role. It was an all-time high at one stage. We saw this quite reflective. So we supported DWP, who were identified as the fourth emergency service to respond to those economic and social pressures. There was a ministerial announcement that was made to increase the DWP work coach workforce by 13,500 staff by March 2021. They obviously had unprecedented times, unprecedented volumes of candidates could potentially be coming through. They chose SSCL as their recruitment partner to support. When I look at that type of campaign that we delivered versus where we are today, 12 months later, the polarity of the market has absolutely shifted. So for me, what I'm seeing with some of our clients at the moment, that it's becoming a much more candidate-driven market. I think a case study was released in the last couple of days that was between the REC and KPMG, which reports starting pay for all workers has hit an all-time record high due to significant increase in competition. So we need to take stuff like that into account when we're recruiting for our organisations. To meet those client needs, we needed to make sure that we have the right targeted talent attraction strategies, make sure that we understand the market, make sure that we understand the localised area, region, and then potentially what's the alternative options. Things like the government estate strategy that was developed to drive growth and opportunity by locating government jobs in multi-department government hubs across regions across the UK. They're forcing organisations to think, actually, let's look outside of London. Let's strengthen the union. Let's support levelling up of regions and the nations. Let's ensure that the civil service and administration of the government is better connected with communities across the UK. And they want to tackle the issue of making, civil service London centric. So for me, one of the reasons that we're looking at obviously Horsefly is to support organisations in challenging the status quo. You don't always need to recruit in London. You can actually pick up teams and individuals around the rest of the UK. What does the talent market look like? What can you get for the money that you are spending? What's the salary insights for London waiting allowance versus outside of London? And overall, we're looking to reduce cost. Another thing that we need to think about, so on the 15th of June 2021, there was the government published its Declaration of Government Reform. Here, they put it across people, performance and partnership. So they want to ensure that the right people are working in the right places with the right incentives. Again, I will come on to the reasons why we've, adopted Horsefly and we're still in the early stages. But I think there's something there that we can tackle the issue to make sure that we're supporting delivering high quality candidates. And then civil service diversity and inclusion across obviously both Met Police and also the civil service cluster organisations. D&I SCS level and above, we need to improve on. We want to make sure that we've got workforces reflective of the communities that we serve. So we're supporting organisations with their D&I strategies. So for me, there's a big piece around, why did I choose Horsefly, right? So, to support with that government state strategy in places of growth. SSCL want to support making, value add data driven recommendations to the government about the talent and where the talent can be based, challenge the current locations and look for alternative talent pools. As I mentioned with the government reform, I think there's a bit, as both, as Rod mentioned, the creation of job roles and job descriptions, ensuring that, the right people are working in those right opportunities and they've got the right incentives. So it's actually helping us consult with our clients about building the job description should they be developing a new functional service. Online product, I've got to be honest with you, it's really simple to use. Both the gentlemen before me have expressed, you can download reports in 30 seconds. We're able to utilize those in PDFs, PowerPoints, and share them back with our customers. Future talent mapping, so talent mapping the market. So this is a chance for SSCL to build strength and relationships with our clients and get involved at an earlier stage of the recruitment process. This also actually helps us to qualify opportunities and be more informed business. So actually, when I'm taking the organisation through qualification of looking at taking on a new project, I'm utilising Horsefly to say, well, actually, can we deliver this in that particular local region? The last thing I want to do is put SSCL into an opportunity that we just can't deliver. Government versus permanent salary expectations. So, it's useful for us to have that salary comparisons at our fingertips. Similar to Rod, we would probably commission other organisations to go out and gather all of that data intelligence on our behalf. We've now got a self-service function that we can now utilise. I've given access to my data and MI team. They can download reports, literally like that within 30 seconds, and we can provide the client with on-demand information. Traction and ROI. So, what's our return on investment in spend? So we're looking to utilize Horsefly to support our talent attraction module and activities to make better informed decisions about where we should spend our budgets. The data-driven decision-making point underneath, I think, is actually quite complementary to everything here. Data is the key in the heart of all of this. Working with people like the Met Police and MOJ, they want to make sure that we've got data-driven decisions, and this is reinforcing some of the decisions that we're making and some of the recommendations that we're suggesting. Competitor analysis is really important at the moment, obviously with that polarity shift and being a candidate-driven market. We're able to review very quickly what do other organizations' job roles look like in comparison to the ones that we're representing? How are they positioning themselves in the market? How much are they paying compared to those proposed the job roles that we've got? What's the benefits package? there's also an opportunity for us to actively map out the market utilizing Horsefly and utilize a targeted approach to these organizations and competitors to go out for headhunting. But we need to have some realistic expectations to say, let's go and target from this particular organization rather than this one, because we understand, what the competition is offering. Diversity and inclusion, so supporting the D&I government agendas, we're able to compare the market by location and understand the inclusion landscape. I'm aware there's progressions and enhancements being made in the background by the Horsefly team, so I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. Support with internal recruitment across the group and joint ventures, so we're not going to practice what we preach to organisations. We're actually adopting this particular approach internally, so I've got a number of workshops over the next couple of weeks where we're implementing given access to our centralised recruitment function, and they do recruitment on behalf of all of the joint ventures. So the Soprasteria centralised recruitment team, who do all of the recruitment for Soprasteria, NHS, SBS and SSCL, will be able to utilise the product to make sure that we internally can better ourselves and understand what the talent landscape is. Between the three organisations, we've got lots of offices all around the country. Let's not look at London centric anymore. Let's not look into some of our centre of excellence. Let's utilise some of the hubs that we've got. Supporting us in hitting our KPIs and SLAs. I think this ties in a little bit further up with one of my other points, but what I mean by this is the tool can actually help me build and understand and feedback when I'm going through tender responses, project RPO, scoping sessions, understanding new engagements where we can actually provide better data-driven decisions in understanding our negotiation for KPIs and SLAs. Because if we're looking for a very niche role in a certain location and we just know there's no candidates there, I can be upfront with clients right at the beginning of the journey, and say this particular job role out of all of the job roles that we're recruiting for in that particular office is going to take a little bit longer. So I think we need to have a slightly different KPI and a time to hire metric to one of the other ones as an example. For me, I think Horsefly actually should pay for itself, right? So not actually the Horsefly guys paying for their own technology, but when I look at what cost-efficient savings we can make for both our clients and us internally, I think when I proposed it to our management structure and said, I want to buy this particular product and these are the reasons why, we looked at, okay, well, what's going to be the return on investment? And, the return on investment sort of should pay for itself. Again, I appreciate we're an early adopter and we're slowly implementing these services both internally and externally. But I'm looking forward to actually maybe coming back and presenting to all of you in 6 to 12 months to share positive, and also in the areas of improvement that we need to. And that's probably the good thing about Horsefly is actually they're looking and always asking about areas for improvement. Where can they provide a better service? What does the customer success team look like? Where can they better themselves? And that's where I've really enjoyed our interaction so far. Flexibility, this is flexibility from the team. They've made themselves available. Flexibility of the product. They're obviously looking at enhancements. Flexibility on payment terms. I probably shouldn't say that, but the guys have been really understanding around, what's it like to try and secure funding and how do I need to pay it over the next, pay my invoice. And, if you could wait just another week or so, because I've got to get my finance guys to sort X, Y, and Z out. They've been real flexible on that. And then my engagement with the Horsefly team so far, they've been great at working with them. I can't fault Steve enough. He's very persistent, but I'm really glad that he made me buy the solution because early signs is showing that actually it's becoming a very useful product that we can utilize both internally and externally. That's pretty much me, and just want to see if there's any particular questions and answers.
Yes, Richard, we've got 2 questions from Joe, which I'll combine into one. Joe asks quite straight up, do you have a service catalogue that you can share? But she also asks, do you work alongside GRS or are you a competitor of GRS? GRS, for those who are not in the public sector, is Government Recruitment Service.
So it's a unique situation. We're a bit of both, right? If I'm honest about GRS, so we're a little bit of both. On some organisations we complement services, and then with other organisations we are in a little bit of competition. It's just the way it is. It's a really unique sector, the public sector recruitment organisations. Me taking a step back, what I wanted to do wasn't disrupt GRS, and that's why we broke up our services into modular solutions to actually be able to complement some of the services that they deliver. So rather than just competing all the time, between two organisations for the wider civil service group, we took a step back and said, actually, we don't want to compete with all of the with everybody. That's why we provided that modular, what I call honeycomb structure. So for me, it's all about going through and picking out the modules that's going to complement either GRS or the in-house service. And that's one of the reasons, so GRS sits with, DWP look after GRS look after DWP recruitment, but they came to us to support with their recruitment for the DWP Work Coach recruitment campaign. Just because we needed to digitize at a slightly quicker pace, and we actually had a little bit more flexibility with staff members and availability at that particular time. We do have a service catalogue, something that we can potentially be shared. The talent insights and intelligence probably won't be on the catalogue at the moment. Might be something that we wind in the future, but that's obviously wider, as part of the big wider remit that I'm looking into at the moment. But some of the clients that are working with us directly from the recruitment and resourcing perspective will hopefully be able to get access via the SSCL recruitment team. Hopefully that answers your question, Joe.
If it does, I'm sure Joe will come straight back. Yes, she says it's brill. Thank you so much, Richard, for taking us through how SSCL are starting to use. We look forward to that offer for speaking again in 6 months about how it's landed and the impact it's having. That would be fantastic. So a number of questions and a number of comments made by the three speakers related to diversity and inclusion. I'm going to ask Will Crandall, who's the CEO of Horsefly, to say a few words about forthcoming modules within the Horsefly product that might just address those comments. Will.
Sure. Appreciate that this is overrun, so thank you for staying on. Thank you so much for our speakers. It really is moving for our team to hear you talk about how Horsefly is benefiting your organisations. So thank you so much. Before the end of the year, to keep it really blunt, we're going to offer 4 major different modules. The first being contractor rates. So alongside permanent salaries, you'll be able to see contractor salaries. Secondly, we're going to give you advert insights. So at the moment, all you see is the insight from profiles, across companies, job titles and skills. We're going to actually give you the ability to switch to look at what your competitor landscape looks like. So how are people advertising for similar talent markets? Really interesting for a lot of you, especially within the Orsted. We're going to add advanced career path analysis. So at the moment, you're able to see 1 step forward, 1 step back. We're going to increase that to 5 or 6 steps either way. So, that'll really help with internal and external mobility opportunities, so you can understand which type of people can come into your organisation across different roles, and also retain talent by giving them the career paths that they will, that they want to go on. You'll be able to offer that within your organisation. And last but not least, we're going to be first to market with granular ethnicity insights. So this is massive for us. We've been working on it for 3 years. It's such a difficult project, and we've invested heavily. And this is going to, you're doing a search on Horsefly exactly as you are today. You're going to be able to see the ethnic breakdown of that market. So you can assess your internal workforce to see how it's comparing to the external workforce across specific departments. you'll be able to set and understand the difficulty of achieving your D&I goals. And you can even use location strategies to achieve D&I objectives. So which locations are optimum for achieving specific objectives that your business have. And there's a whole ream of other things that we've identified. But yeah, just to finish off, all our clients have given us these ideas for the product enhancements. And, you know, we can't thank you enough, and we look forward to releasing them before the end of the year.
So, well, that might actually answer a question from Joe, who says the ethnicity data, will it be available this year or next year?
It'll be available before the end of this year. So, yeah, that'll be available then.
Looking forward to that. I have been privileged enough to see a draft of what that might look like, and it looks amazing. I think it's a game changer in this space. So please do keep everybody informed as that comes through. Well, I'm sure they're going to be really excited. Everybody, this webinar has been one to try to introduce those who are not familiar with labour market insight and talent analytics into what it can do, the power of information and data. I think we've heard that it enables you to take a front step, a foot forward, taking TA to the table, taking strategic information into the boardroom, or the management committee. I think it's been a really useful and timely, with over 1.1 million vacancies, with I think somebody said there was 34,000 recruiter vacancies out there at the moment. I mean, these are just staggering numbers. And if today has helped you think about how you can use talent analytics data relating to the employment field a little bit better in your organization, then that's been fantastic. Huge thank you to Rod, to Richard, and to Dave for sharing their experiences. Will's whetted our appetite, and I'd like now to hand back to Steve, who will explain how you can find out some more about this if you want to. Over to you, Steve.
Yeah, just to echo what you've said there, Adrian, thanks ever so much to our fantastic speakers today. I think there's been 3 completely different talks that's shared different parts of the Horsefly story with our audience, so hopefully it's been interesting. If you do want to learn more about Horsefly, just you can find us on LinkedIn. Obviously, we're online on the Horsefly website, and you can register for demonstrations on there. Feel free to connect with myself on LinkedIn should you wish to do so. It's under Steve Bebbington Horsefly, and I would love to hear from anyone else that would like to see one-on-one information against a key challenge or a critical problem for your organisation. Happy to look at the way we can support you. Adrian, back to you to close everyone out and give some little bit of time back, possibly.
Thanks, Steve. As the way they do it on stage, I've been Adrian Thomas, and this has been a Horsefly webinar. Thank you so much for attending. Goodbye, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.